The void was supposed to be predictable. 15 years operating from the orbiter, hundreds of missions through solar rails, countless transference jumps between ship and surface. The Tenno had mastered the space between spaces. But when the Railjack's void drive intersected with something impossibly bright, something that tasted like ancient technology but felt wrong, predictability died screaming. The golden tear in reality swallowed everything. Warframe, operator, consciousness, all of it pulled through a tunnel that burned with energies the void had never known. Then silence, then freefall. The Tenno's Excalibur frame plummeted through alien clouds toward a vast ocean, broken only by a single impossible structure rising from the waves. A city. Organic curves met geometric precision in architecture that made something deep in the Orokin-designed Warframe resonate with recognition. Not home, but familiar. Archwing deployment failed, systems screaming error codes in languages 3 civilizations dead. The Tenno switched to operator mode, felt the void energy surge and sputter like a damaged reactor. Transference held, barely. The frame systems compensated, redirecting power to kinetic dampeners as water rushed up to meet them. Impact. The ocean exploded outward in a 50-meter radius, displacement wave rolling toward the city's base. The Excalibur frame knifed through water, emergency protocols engaging. Servos locked, internal atmosphere sealed. Biomechanical tissues absorbed the shock that would have liquefied an unaugmented human. The Tenno sank 30 meters before magnetic grapples fired, latching onto submerged structural supports. Pulling free of the water, the frame scaled the city's outer wall with movements that defied human kinetics. Fluid, precise, impossibly fast. Consciousness flickered. The operator, barely 16 by Earth standards, but ancient by experience, felt the void connection waver. Something about this place, this galaxy, resisted the energy that made Tenno immortal. The frame crested the wall and dropped into a corridor of soft, blue light and crystalline technology. Empty, but sensors detected life signs throughout the structure. Hundreds of them. Human. The bio readings suggested yes, but the technology surrounding them spoke of civilizations that should have died millennia ago. A voice crackled through communication systems the Tenno hadn't known were active. Unidentified contact. This is Atlantis Control. You are in a restricted military facility. Identify yourself immediately, or we will respond with lethal force. The Tenno's hand moved to the Skana blade, mag-locked to their hip. Atlantis. The word meant nothing. The threat meant everything. But these people spoke a language the Warframe systems could parse. Earth dialect, 21st century structure. Impossible. Earth was centuries gone, the origin system all that remained. I am Tenno, the operator's voice transmitted through the frame's vocabulator, distorted by Orokin modulation. Where is this place? What galaxy? Silence. Then, did you just ask what galaxy you're in? The void energy pulsed, unstable. The operator felt it slipping. The connection to the frame growing tenuous. They needed answers. They needed their orbiter. They needed to understand what had torn them from the origin system and thrown them into this place that felt like home and exile in equal measure. The Tenno moved deeper into Atlantis, sensors mapping every corridor, every junction. Somewhere in this city of impossible architecture, someone would have answers. And if they tried to stop the Tenno from getting those answers, well, the Excalibur frame had ended the Orokin Empire once. It could handle one city. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The response team arrived in force. 12 Marines in tactical gear, P90s raised, moving with practiced efficiency through corridors they'd walked 1,000 times. They found the intruder in the East Pier observation deck, standing motionless before the panoramic windows overlooking Atlantis's spires and the endless Lantean Ocean beyond. Lieutenant Colonel John Shepard had seen a lot of weird things since arriving in the Pegasus galaxy. Wraith that fed on human life force, ancient technology that responded to thoughts, space vampires, self-replicating nanites, beings of pure energy. But the figure before him registered as something new entirely. The armor, if that's what it was, seemed to shift in the blue light of the ancient city. Streamlined, organic, like someone had grown metal and flesh into a single impossible synthesis. Gold accents traced across white and red biomechanical plating. A face that wasn't quite a helmet, wasn't quite a mask, eyeless but somehow aware. The figure stood barely 6 feet tall, but presence filled the room like a coiled spring. "Let's try this again," Shepard said, keeping his P-90 trained center mass. "Who are you and how did you get into Atlantis?" The figure turned, movement unnaturally smooth. "I am Tenno, warrior operative of the Origin system. Your facility matches Orokin design principles, but the location is wrong. The energy signatures are wrong." That distorted voice carried harmonics that made Shepard's teeth ache. "Explain." "Orokin," Dr. Rodney McKay's voice came through Shepard's earpiece. "John, I'm reading energy signatures from that armor that don't match any known technology. It's not ancient, not Wraith, not Asgard. It's something else entirely." Shepard gestured for his team to spread out, flanking positions. "Here's how this works. You're in our house. You answer our questions first, then maybe we'll answer yours, starting with, are you a threat to this facility?" The Tenno's head tilted, considering. "That depends on your intentions toward me. I did not choose to come here. My ship intersected with a spatial anomaly, a tunnel of directed energy that felt like ancient technology, but functioned like nothing I have encountered. It pulled me from my galaxy to yours." "Stargate," McKay breathed through the comm. "John, I think this thing came through the gate. Except that's impossible because the gate wasn't active, and even if it was, nothing that size could fit through the event horizon without—" "McKay, not helping." Shepard took a step forward. "You said ancient technology. What do you know about the ancients?" "Nothing beyond what their ruins taught my people." The Tenno moved toward the window, and 12 weapons tracked the motion. "Centuries ago, the Orokin Empire ruled my system. They created weapons of immense power, then lost control of them. The Tenno were their greatest creation and their final mistake. We ended them. Now we maintain balance, taking contracts, fighting wars that would consume weaker civilizations." Shepard exchanged glances with his second. "So you're mercenaries?" "We are survivors. The Orokin are dust. The sentients nearly destroyed our system. The Grineer and Corpus wage endless war. The Tenno stand between chaos and extinction." The figure's hand rested near a blade at its hip. Had that been there before? "Your city hums with technology that should not exist. Who built this place?" Dr. Elizabeth Weir's voice joined the comm channel. "Colonel Shepard, bring our guest to the conference room. I think we need to have a longer conversation." "With respect, ma'am, I'm not sure that wasn't a suggestion, Colonel." The Tenno turned from the window, fixing that eyeless gaze on Shepard. "Your leader wishes to speak. I accept. But understand, I am stranded in your galaxy with limited resources. My ship is beyond reach. My arsenal is reduced to what I carried. Until I find a way home, I need information. If you provide it freely, we have no conflict." "And if we don't?" Shepard asked. The Tenno's hand moved faster than human reflex. The blade cleared its sheath and returned before Shepard could blink. A whisper of Orokin steel that left a hairline cut across his P-90's barrel. the weapon fell in 2 pieces. "Then we have conflict," the Tenno said quietly. "I would prefer cooperation." Shepard looked at his ruined weapon, then at the warrior who stood ready to cut through 12 Marines like they were paper. "Conference room it is, but the Marines stay with us." "Acceptable." The Tenno moved toward the door, and the soldiers parted instinctively. "Take me to your leader, and someone should analyze the location where I entered your atmosphere. The spatial distortion may still be active." As they walked through Atlantis's corridors, McKay's voice crackled urgently. "John, I'm picking up residual energy signatures at the impact site. Whatever brought this thing here punched a hole in space-time that's still bleeding exotic particles. If it expands, how bad? Think sucking Atlantis into another dimension bad. I need to get a team down there immediately." Shepard watched the Tenno move ahead of him, that impossible armor reflecting ancient blue light in ways that hurt to look at directly. One problem at a time. First, figure out if this warrior was friend, foe, or something in between. Then worry about the hole in reality bleeding under their city. The Wraith Hive ship Bitter Harvest detected the anomaly 3 hours after the Tenno's arrival. Queen's Guard Vex stood on the command deck, studying the holographic display with predatory interest. Energy signatures that didn't match ancient technology, didn't match any known civilization. Something new had entered the Pegasus galaxy. "Origin point?" Vex demanded. "Lantea," his second replied. "The readings emanate from the ancestor city the humans claim as their own." Vex's feeding hand clenched reflexively. The human city had proven frustratingly resistant to culling, protected by weapons the ancestors left behind, and the cunning of prey that refused to die properly. But this energy signature spoke of technology beyond even ancient design. Biomechanical, organic. Power sources that resonated with frequencies Wraith sensors had never catalogued. "Prepare a dart. I will investigate personally." "My lord, if this is a trap, then I will feed well before I die." Vex moved toward the dart bay, his long white hair trailing behind him. "The Queen hungers for warriors who can strengthen the hive. If this energy signature belongs to a being of power, I will bring it before her. Alive." The dart launched from the hive ship's underside, its organic hull shimmering as it entered Lantea's atmosphere. Vex piloted with practiced ease, following the energy trail toward the floating city. Cloaking technology engaged, rendering the craft invisible to primitive sensors. But as he approached, the energy signature moved. Fast. The reading suggested a single humanoid life form, but the power output registered higher than any human Vex had encountered. The being had left the city and now traversed the mainland, moving through a dense forest with impossible speed. Curious. Vex adjusted course following the signal. Perhaps the being had detected Wraith approach. Perhaps it fled. Or perhaps, Vex's tactical mind considered, it recognized the threat and moved to engage away from the human city. Intelligent prey made the best feeding. The dart descended into a clearing where the being stood waiting. Vex studied it through his sensors, humanoid, armored in biomechanical plating that seemed to breathe, energy readings that spiked and fluctuated like a damaged reactor. The armor's design spoke of civilizations that understood flesh and machine as a single continuum, not unlike Wraith biotechnology. Vex landed the dart and emerged, feeding hand extended in greeting or threat. "I am Vex, Queen's Guard of Hive Bitter Harvest. You are not of this galaxy. Your energy calls to my hive like nothing we have tasted in 10,000 years." The Tenno stood motionless, analyzing. The Wraith before them radiated wrongness, biomechanical like the infested but controlled, predatory like the corpus, but ancient. The being's hand, grotesque with feeding slits, suggested parasitic capabilities the operator recognized from too many derelict missions. "I am Tenno. I have no business with you, Wraith." The operator kept the Excalibur frame ready, energy flows prepared. The void connection still flickered, but combat systems remained operational. "Leave now, or I will consider you hostile." Vex laughed, the sound like tearing metal. "You misunderstand your position, stranger. This galaxy belongs to the Wraith. We have culled worlds, fed on civilizations, ruled these stars since before your kind learned to craft weapons. You are alone, far from home, and you carry power my queen would claim." The feeding hand shot forward, faster than human reaction. It met the Excalibur's wrist, palm to palm, as the Tenno intercepted with casual precision. Biomechanical servos locked against organic strength. Neither moved. "You're fast," Vex admitted, "but speed means nothing when—" The Tenno's energy spiked. Radial javelin activated, blades of light erupting from the frame in all directions. Vex threw himself backward, feeling one projectile score his chest armor. The wound burned with energy that felt like antimatter, like dimensional bleeding. Like nothing Wraith regeneration had evolved to heal. "Impossible," Vex hissed, watching the wound refuse to close. "What are you?" The Tenno drew the Skana blade. "I am Tenno. I have ended empires. I have fought the sentients and survived the old war. I have walked through the void and returned changed. You are one Wraith warrior with delusions of supremacy." Vex activated his stunner, but the Tenno moved through the blast as if it were rain. The blade sang, Orokin steel meeting Wraith armor. The Queen's Guard parried with his own blade, biological weapon meeting technological perfection. They exchanged 7 strikes before Vex realized he was outmatched. The Tenno fought with techniques refined across centuries, movements that suggested dozens of different combat forms synthesized into perfect efficiency. Each strike tested Vex's defenses. Each parry came microseconds later than the last. "My hive will know of you," Vex snarled, retreating toward his dart. "The queens will send hunters. We will study you, break you, learn what makes your power function. And when we understand, you will die." The Tenno's blade found Vex's shoulder, cutting deep. "Tell your queens this. The Tenno do not submit. We do not break. And we do not fear predators who have never faced real monsters." Vex fled into his dart, the craft launching with desperate speed. As he climbed toward orbit, he transmitted to the hive ship. "Alert the Queen. New threat detected. Classification unknown. Recommend immediate fleet mobilization." Below, the Tenno watched the dart disappear into the clouds. The operator felt the void energy settle, stabilizing slightly. Combat had focused it somehow, aligned their power with this galaxy's physics. But the Wraith would return, and they would bring numbers. The Tenno needed allies, which meant returning to Atlantis and convincing those humans that cooperation served both their interests, or eliminating the Wraith presence in this sector entirely. Dr. Rodney McKay had seen ancient technology interface with every known power source in the Pegasus galaxy. 0-point modules, Asgard neutrino generators, even Wraith bioorganic systems. None of them had made his instruments scream in protest, like the energy signature emanating from the Tenno's armor. "This is impossible," he muttered for the 7th time, studying the scan results in Atlantis's main laboratory. The power output fluctuates between 0 and values that should create localized gravitational anomalies. The energy type doesn't match our electromagnetic spectrum. And the material composition, he gestured wildly at the holographic readout. It reads as organic tissue, metallic alloy, and something the computer is classifying as error because it literally doesn't have a category for it. Doctor, Carson Beckett looked up from his own terminal, medical scanner in hand. And the operator inside? I got brief readings when they moved through the corridor. The life signs are human baseline, but there's something else. Energy patterns in the neural tissue that suggest... He trailed off, uncomfortable. Rodney, I think the person controlling that suit isn't entirely human anymore. Define not entirely. The neural architecture suggests augmentation at a cellular level. Something rewrote their biology to interface with that armor. But more than that, there's energy flowing through their brain that doesn't originate from biochemical processes. It's like they're connected to a power source we can't detect. McKay pulled up the spatial distortion readings from the impact site. The wormhole that brought them here is definitely artificial, but it's not Stargate technology. Look at the energy harmonics. Ancient gates create stable space-time tunnels using specific frequencies. This thing, he highlighted a series of quantum fluctuations. This thing punched through dimensional barriers like tissue paper. Different physics entirely. So what are we dealing with? Colonel Shepard asked from the doorway. The Tenno stood beside him, silent observer to the scientists' debate. A warrior from another galaxy equipped with biotechnology that shouldn't exist, powered by energy our instruments can barely measure, who arrived through a dimensional rift that violates several laws of physics. McKay looked directly at the Tenno. Does that about cover it? The Orokin understood that biology and technology are not separate disciplines, the Tenno replied. They created the Warframes as ultimate soldiers, biomechanical constructs controlled through transference, a form of consciousness projection. The operator inside guides the frame. The frame provides power and protection. Consciousness projection? Beckett leaned forward. You're saying you're remotely controlling that body? Not remotely. I am inside the frame, but my true body remains elsewhere, protected while my consciousness inhabits this form. The connection spans distance through the void, an energy dimension that exists between spaces. The Tenno paused. Though in this galaxy, the void connection is unstable. I am trapped inside the Warframe until I can re-establish a link to my orbiter. McKay's fingers flew across his keyboard. Consciousness transfer technology. The ancients theorized about it, never perfected it. But you're saying your civilization mastered it enough to create these Warframes? How many exist? The Tenno number in the thousands. Each operates independently, taking contracts throughout the origin system. We maintain balance between the Grineer Empire, the Corpus Corporate Fleet, and the infested plague that consumes all it touches. Shepard crossed his arms. Sounds like you've got your own version of the Wraith problem. The infested are worse. They don't feed, they convert. Flesh, metal, consciousness, all absorbed into a techno-organic collective that spreads like disease. The Tenno's tone carried weight of experience. I have cleared infested ships where the crew became the walls, where the screaming never stops because the victims remain partially aware as they're transformed. The room fell silent. McKay broke it. Right, lovely. So you're stuck here, in our galaxy, with limited power and no way home, which means you need our help. I need information. The spatial anomaly that brought me here originated from something in this galaxy, a massive energy surge that intersected with my ship's void drive and created a temporary bridge between dimensions. If I can locate the source, I may be able to reverse the process. Or tear a hole in space-time and kill everyone in Pegasus, McKay countered. No offense. But playing with dimensional physics without understanding the underlying mechanics is a fantastic way to create an extinction-level event. Then help me understand. Your facility contains ancient technology. Your scientists study spatial phenomena. Work with me, and I will ensure the process is controlled. Elizabeth Weir entered the lab, having listened from the hallway. That's a generous offer, but it assumes we can trust you. You've demonstrated considerable combat capability. You've admitted to working as a mercenary, and you've told us your civilization specializes in ending empires. She met the Tenno's eyeless gaze. Why should we believe you won't decide Atlantis is a threat worth eliminating? The Tenno considered the question with unnerving stillness. Because I have seen what happens when civilizations collapse. The Orokin fell and the origin system descended into endless war. Billions died. Entire worlds burned. The Tenno fight to prevent that chaos from consuming everything. The distorted voice carried conviction. Your Atlantis stands against the Wraith. You protect human worlds from culling. Your mission parallels our own. I will not harm those who fight against extinction. Pretty words, Shepard said, but we just watched you cut a Wraith warrior apart and send him running. That hive ship is still out there, and now they know you exist. They're going to come back with friends. Then we have common enemies. The Wraith hunt me. They threaten you. Cooperation serves both our interests. The Tenno moved to McKay's terminal, studying the data with rapid comprehension. This city, Atlantis, it's mobile, yes? You can submerge it, move it to different locations. How did you? McKay started. The structural design suggests variable buoyancy systems. The power distribution indicates engines capable of moving massive displacement. The Orokin built similar structures in the outer terminus. The Tenno traced patterns on the holographic display. You're not native to this galaxy either. You came through the same gateway system, following ancient pathways. We are both strangers in Pegasus, using technology we inherited rather than created. Weir exchanged glances with her team. The Tenno's analysis was accurate, uncomfortably so. What are you proposing? Information exchange. I help you understand the spatial anomaly under your city before it destabilizes. I provide combat support against Wraith incursions while I'm stranded here. In return, you grant me access to your gate network data and help me locate the energy source that brought me to Pegasus. The Tenno turned from the terminal. And when more Wraith arrive, because they will, I will show you how Tenno wage war. The village of Tavor on M3X387 had known peace for 6 months. Long enough for the farmers to plant new crops, for the children to forget the last culling screams, for the elders to believe the ancestors might finally show mercy. Then the Wraith darts darkened the sky like locusts, and peace died with the first culling beam. Shepard's puddle jumper broke atmosphere 30 seconds after receiving the distress call. Through the forward viewport, he watched darts swarm over the village, their beams pulling people into holding cells like fish in nets. A hive ship hung in high orbit, waiting for its harvest. We're outnumbered 20-1, Lieutenant Ford reported from Tactical. Colonel, we need to fall back and request backup. By the time backup arrives, everyone down there will be Wraith food. Shepard armed weapons systems, targeting the nearest dart. We engage, we disrupt their pattern, we give the villagers time to reach the gate. The Tenno's voice crackled through comms from the jumper's rear compartment. You plan to fight 20 darts with one ship. Tactically inadvisable. You got a better idea? Yes. The rear hatch opened. Wind screamed through the jumper. Get me within 300 meters of the village center, then pull back and provide suppressing fire. Shepard twisted in his seat. The Tenno stood at the open hatch, Excalibur frame gleaming in the alien sunlight. You're going to jump from a moving spacecraft at 5,000 feet? I've jumped from orbit before. This is reasonable altitude. The Tenno moved to the edge. Trust me, Colonel. I have fought worse odds. McKay's going to kill me for this, Shepard muttered, banking toward the village. Ford, if this goes sideways. "We're already sideways, sir." The jumper screamed over the village at 300 meters. The Tenno stepped into empty air and fell like a missile. Wraith darts broke formation, confused by the projectile that tracked toward their position with purpose rather than physics. The Excalibur frame twisted mid-fall, Archwing deploying in a burst of golden light. The Archwing propulsion systems, designed for zero-gravity combat, roared to life in atmosphere. The Tenno didn't slow their descent. They accelerated, becoming a meteor that slammed into the village square hard enough to crack stone. The impact crater radiated outward in perfect geometric patterns as the frame's kinetic dampeners bled excess energy into the ground. Wraith darts converged on the new threat. Culling beams lanced downward, trying to capture this strange warrior. The beams met empty air. The Tenno moved through three-dimensional space like the word ground was a suggestion, not a rule. Wall running, bullet jumping, airborne maneuvers that treated gravity as negotiable. Radial javelin activated. Blades of concentrated energy erupted in a sphere, catching 4 darts in the kill radius. The alien metal screamed as Orokin-designed weapons tore through Wraith biotechnology, sending craft spiraling into the forest beyond the village. "What the hell is that?" Ford breathed. "That," Shepard said, targeting another dart with the jumper's drones, "is what happens when you give ancient warrior technology to someone who actually knows how to use it." The Tenno landed on a dart's hull mid-flight, Skana blade piercing the organic armor. The craft shuddered, pilot dying before it could scream. The Tenno rode it down, jumping clear as the dart crashed into a culling pen, releasing 24 villagers who scattered toward the gate. Vex watched from his command dart, rage building. This was the being that had wounded him, had sent him fleeing like prey. Now it dared interrupt a sanctioned culling, dared destroy Wraith property, dared challenge the natural order of Pegasus. "All darts focus fire. I want that creature captured alive." 10 darts redirected, forming a kill box around the Tenno. Culling beams fired simultaneously, creating a cage of light that should have overwhelmed any defense. The Tenno's frame glowed, void energy surging despite the dimensional instability. Radial blind activated, pure white light exploding from the Excalibur, blinding every Wraith pilot in range. The darts wavered, sensors overloaded. The Tenno used the confusion to leap onto another craft, blades singing as it carved through cockpit armor. Another pilot dead, another dart plummeting. Shepard brought the jumper around, drones eliminating 2 more darts. "Okay, I'm officially impressed and terrified." The Tenno landed in the village center, surrounded by grateful civilians rushing toward the Stargate. Vex's dart descended, the Queen's Guard emerging with 6 warriors at his back. His feeding hand had healed from their last encounter, but the memory of that wound remained. "Surrender," Vex demanded, his voice carrying across the square. "You fight well, stranger, but you cannot defeat my hive. The Queen has taken interest in you. Submit now and your death will be swift. Resist, and we will take you apart slowly, learning what makes your power function." The Tenno faced the 7 Wraith warriors, alone in the square, as the last villagers fled through the gate. The Excalibur frame's energy readings spiked, drawing on reserves the operator knew were dangerously low. But the void connection, unstable since arriving in Pegasus, suddenly crystallized. Combat had a way of focusing power. "I have a message for your queen," the Tenno said. "The Tenno do not kneel, we do not surrender, and we certainly don't submit to parasites who mistake predation for strength." Exalted blade activated. Pure energy formed along the Skana's length, extending the weapon to twice its size with void energy made solid. The blade hummed with frequencies that made the Wraith warriors step back instinctively, recognizing power that could permanently end their regeneration. "Come then," the Tenno said. Let me show you what real monsters look like." Vex screamed orders, but the Tenno was already moving. The exalted blade carved through the first warrior before his feeding hand could rise. The second lost his arm and head in a single spinning strike. The third managed to block, his own blade meeting the energy weapon and shattering like glass. Shepard watched through the jumper's sensors, unable to look away. That's not possible. The Wraith are faster than humans, stronger, regenerate from almost anything. How is one person? "That's not a person, sir," Ford interrupted. "That's something else wearing person-shaped armor." The Tenno fought like the battlefield belonged to them. Every movement flowed into the next. Every strike tested multiple defenses simultaneously. The Wraith warriors, apex predators who had culled civilizations for 10,000 years, fell like children facing an adult's fury. Vex found himself alone, his warriors dead or dying around him. The Tenno stood amid the carnage, exalted blades still burning with void energy. "You wanted to study me. Tell your queen what you learned today. The Tenno are not prey." The queen's guard fled to his dart, launching with desperate speed. The Tenno watched him go, then deactivated the exalted blade. The void energy dissipated, and the operator felt the connection waver again. That technique had drained reserves already stretched thin by dimensional instability. Shepard brought the jumper down, hatch opening. "We need to move." That hive ship is going to notice 7 dead Wraith and a lot of destroyed darts. The Tenno boarded, frame moving with sudden weariness. "Agreed. But the villagers? Through the gate and safe, thanks to you." Shepard engaged the cloak and climbed toward orbit. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen. I'm still deciding which. The Tenno exist at the intersection of those concepts, Colonel. We call it survival. The Atlantis conference room had seen heated debates before. Budget concerns, mission priorities, diplomatic disasters. But nothing quite like watching Elizabeth Weir and Colonel Shepard argue over whether to turn an interdimensional warrior into a strategic asset. "Absolutely not," Weir said firmly, addressing Shepard and the assembled department heads. "We are not weaponizing the Tenno. They're a stranded traveler, not a piece of military equipment we can deploy at will. With respect, ma'am, the Tenno just saved 200 people from culling." Shepard leaned forward, holographic tactical display showing M3X387. 7 Wraith warriors dead, 12 darts destroyed, 0 civilian casualties. "Those numbers speak for themselves." McKay jumped in. "They also demonstrate power we don't understand, deployed in ways we can't predict." "What happens when the Tenno decides our mission parameters don't align with their objectives? What if they determine Atlantis is more useful conquered than cooperated with?" "I have given my word," the Tenno interjected from their position near the window. "The Orokin taught the Tenno many things. Honor was not among them. We learned that from necessity, but once given, our word holds." Dr. Beckett studied his medical tricorder, frowning at readings that refused to stabilize. "I'm more concerned with the physical toll. That energy spike during combat, it nearly burned out my scanners. Whatever power source you're drawing from, it's unstable in our dimension. If it fails catastrophically, then I die and your problem resolves itself." The Tenno turned from the window. "But until then, I am an asset you cannot afford to waste. The Wraith know I exist. They've witnessed capabilities they don't understand. That makes them cautious, which makes them vulnerable." Taylor Emagan, a Thosian leader and Atlantis' cultural liaison, spoke quietly. "The Wraith do not know caution. They know hunger. If you have made yourself prey worth hunting, they will come with overwhelming force. Hive ships, warriors, perhaps even a queen herself." "Good." The Tenno's distorted voice carried no hesitation. Concentrated targets are easier to eliminate than dispersed ones. Okay, that's insane, McKay sputtered. You can't fight an entire hive ship, the computational power alone required to coordinate. In the Origin system, I have boarded Grineer galleons with 10,000 crew. I have infiltrated Corpus installations defended by automated security that makes your ancient technology look primitive. I have survived the infested and ended threats that would have consumed your entire galaxy. The Tenno moved to the tactical display, studying Wraith ship configurations with professional interest. A hive ship is large, but large targets have large weaknesses. Weir held up a hand, forestalling McKay's response. Even assuming you could board a hive ship, which I'm not conceding, we don't have the authority to unilaterally escalate to offensive operations. The IOA expects us to defend human worlds and search for ancient technology, not wage war with an interdimensional mercenary. Then perhaps it's time to question their expectations, the Tenno replied. Your defensive posture allows the Wraith to dictate engagement terms. They choose when to cull, which worlds to attack, how many resources to commit. You react. That's not strategy, that's survival. And survival without offense is just delayed extinction. Shepard grinned. I like this one. They think like military. They think like a weapon, Weir countered. And that's my concern. Weapons don't make policy decisions. They don't consider diplomatic ramifications. They solve problems through violence. The Tenno was silent for a long moment. When they spoke again, the distorted voice carried something unexpected. Weariness. Dr. Weir, I have fought for 15 years. I have seen civilizations burn and empires fall. I have killed thousands, perhaps tens of thousands. The Orokin created the Tenno as ultimate soldiers, and we fulfilled that purpose so well we ended our creators. The frame's posture shifted, somehow conveying vulnerability despite the armor. You fear what I am. That's wisdom. But understand this. I am stranded in your galaxy, cut off from my ship and my support network. I cannot return home without your help. That means I need Atlantis to survive and succeed. Your mission is now my mission, not through altruism, but through necessity. The honesty cut through the debate's tension. Weir studied the Tenno with new consideration. You're saying we have leverage. I'm saying we have common cause. The Wraith threaten human worlds. The Tenno protect the balance. Until I find a way home, those objectives align. Dr. Zelenka, who had been quietly analyzing data, spoke up. There is also matter of spatial anomaly. The dimensional rift under City continues to bleed exotic particles. If Tenno is correct, and this was caused by intersection of their technology with Gate Network, then helping them return home also closes rift. Otherwise, we face potential catastrophic expansion. McKay pulled up the latest sensor readings. He's right. The rift is growing, slowly but measurably. In 6 months, maybe a year, it could reach critical mass. At which point, he made an explosive gesture. Atlantis gets sucked into whatever dimension the Tenno came from, or we create a permanent bridge between galaxies, or something even worse happens. Then we have a timeline, Weir concluded. The Tenno helps us investigate the rift, provides combat support when necessary, and in return we dedicate resources to finding a way to send them home. But, she fixed the Tenno with a hard stare, you follow mission parameters. You don't engage in offensive operations without authorization. You don't make unilateral decisions that could spark a war. And you absolutely do not kill anyone without direct threat justification. Are we clear? The Tenno considered, then inclined their head in acknowledgement. Clear. But when the Wraith escalate, and they will, your rules of engagement may become liability rather than protection. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Weir stood, signaling the meeting's end. For now, you're assigned to Shepard's team on a provisional basis. Dr. McKay and Dr. Zelenka will work with you on the rift analysis. Dr. Beckett will continue monitoring your condition. And Colonel, she turned to Shepard, if our guest decides to go rogue, you have authorization to neutralize the threat by any means necessary. After the meeting, as the team dispersed, Shepard found the Tenno on Atlantis's East Pier, watching the sunset paint the ocean gold and crimson. You handled that well, Shepard said. Thought McKay was going to have an aneurysm when you called ancient technology primitive. It is, compared to Orokin design, but effective nonetheless. The Tenno turned slightly. Your Dr. Weir fears me. That's reasonable, but she also gave me operational parameters rather than imprisonment. That's trust, however tentative. She's good at reading people. Probably figured out that locking you up would end badly for everyone. Shepard leaned against the railing. For what it's worth, I've seen a lot of dangerous people in my career. Some I trusted, some I didn't. You? Jury's still out. But that thing you did on M3X 387, saving those people, that counts for something. The Tenno maintain balance. Sometimes that requires violence. Sometimes it requires mercy. The Tenno paused. I have been alone since arriving in your galaxy. It is disorienting. The Tenno operate independently, but we are part of something larger. Here I am severed from that connection. Your offer of partnership, provisional as it is, provides anchor. Shepard nodded. Just don't make me regret it. Weir wasn't kidding about neutralizing threats. I've got ancient gene therapy and a really big gun. I'd prefer not to find out if they're enough. The Tenno's distorted laugh sounded almost human. Colonel, if I go rogue, your gun won't be the problem. The void energy would be. But I have no intention of testing that scenario. As they stood watching the sunset, neither noticed McKay in the lab below, analyzing energy readings that suggested the Tenno's void connection was strengthening. The dimensional instability that had weakened their power was adapting, learning Pegasus Galaxy's physics. In 3 months, maybe less, the Tenno would operate at full capacity. Whether that was good news or catastrophic remained to be seen. Commander Acastus Kolya of the Genie military studied the intelligence report with growing interest. His network of informants throughout Pegasus had whispered rumors for weeks. A warrior of unprecedented power, technology that made ancient devices look primitive, combat capabilities that had scattered Wraith forces on multiple worlds. The Genie built their power through cunning and technology acquired from those foolish enough to underestimate them. This Tenno represented an opportunity unlike any Kolya had encountered. Verification? He asked his intelligence officer. Multiple sources confirm. The being operates with the Atlantis expedition, though the alliance appears tense. They've been assigned to Colonel Shepard's team, but maintain independent status. The officer highlighted several data points. 3 confirmed combat encounters with Wraith forces, estimated casualty count, 47 warriors, 23 darts destroyed, 0 allied losses in engagements where the Tenno participated. Kolya smiled. And the Lanteans haven't weaponized this asset? Fools. They're too concerned with ethics to recognize opportunity. He turned to his tactical display, considering options. What do we know about the armor? Biomechanical hybrid, possibly sentient. Power source unknown but incredibly dense. The being claims to be controlling the armor remotely through something called transference, consciousness projection across distance. The officer pulled up blurry reconnaissance photos. But, Commander, there's something else. Our contacts report the Tenno is stranded here, cut off from their home galaxy. They need the Atlantis expedition's resources to return. which means they're vulnerable. Kolya's mind raced through possibilities. If we could capture the Tenno, study their technology, replicate even a fraction of their capabilities, the Genii would become the dominant power in Pegasus. The Wraith would have to negotiate with us as equals. Capture may prove difficult, sir. The combat assessments suggest I'm aware of their capabilities, which is why we don't confront them directly. Kolya pulled up star charts, highlighting a world the Atlantis expedition regularly visited. M7G 677, agricultural world, minimal defenses, strong trading relationship with the Lanteans. The Tenno will respond if the population is threatened. And when they arrive to play hero, he traced a finger across the tactical display, we'll be ready with overwhelming force and technology specifically designed to counter their advantages. His second-in-command looked skeptical. What technology? We've never encountered anything like the Tenno before. But we've studied Wraith stunners, ancient restraint systems, electromagnetic pulse weapons that disable technology regardless of its origin. The Tenno's armor is technology, however organic. Technology can be disrupted. Kolya's smile widened. And if disruption fails, we have other options. The Tenno cares about protecting civilians. That's both their strength and their weakness. We'll ensure they understand cooperation is the only way to prevent civilian casualties. The Atlantis expedition will respond to any attack on M7G 677. Shepard's team won't let us. Shepard's team will be managed separately. I have plans for them as well. Kolya moved to the communications console. Prepare insertion teams, full combat load, plus our new electromagnetic countermeasures, and bring the modified ancient technology we recovered from the Dorandan outpost. If the Tenno's power operates on similar principles, it might provide leverage. When do we move? Soon. But first, I want to observe the Tenno in combat one more time, understand their tactics, their limitations, their decision-making under pressure. Kolya pulled up surveillance data from M3X 387. They fight like an artist, precise, efficient, deadly, but every artist has patterns, and patterns can be exploited. 3 days later, the Tenno stood on M7G 677's central plaza, watching children play near the market stalls. The world reminded them of the outer terminus colonies, peaceful, agrarian, people who wanted nothing more than to farm and trade and raise families away from war. You seem uncomfortable, Taylor observed. She had accompanied the diplomatic mission to negotiate grain supplies, and the Tenno had volunteered as security. Peace makes me uncomfortable, the Tenno admitted. The Tenno exist in spaces between conflicts. When there's no war to fight, no balance to maintain. The distorted voice trailed off. I don't know what I am. You are a warrior without a war. That is its own kind of suffering. Taylor gestured to the children. But perhaps here you could learn another way. Not every problem requires violence to solve. The Tenno watched a young girl chase her brother through the market, laughing. The Orokin thought the Tenno would be perfect soldiers, emotionless, obedient, expendable. They were wrong. We feel everything. We just learned to function despite it. The frame's posture shifted. Sometimes I wonder what the child inside this armor would have become if the Orokin hadn't. Alarms screamed across the plaza. The Stargate activated, unauthorized, and genie soldiers poured through by the dozens. They moved with military precision, weapons trained on civilians who scattered in panic. Kolya strode through last, surveying his conquest with satisfaction. Tenno, his voice boomed across the plaza. We have no quarrel with these people, but accidents happen in combat situations. Innocents die when warriors choose violence over negotiation. He gestured, and his soldiers herded villagers into the market center. You will surrender your armor, allow us to study it peacefully, and in return, these people live. Resist, and we'll be forced to demonstrate our resolve. The Tenno's energy signature spiked. You've made a mistake, Commander. Threatening civilians to get to me won't end how you imagine. Really? Because from where I'm standing, you're outnumbered 50 to 1, surrounded by hostages, and your Atlantis friends are light years away. Kolya activated a device on his wrist. We've also deployed electromagnetic pulse generators throughout the plaza. One signal from me and they activate simultaneously. Your armor's technology will shut down and you'll be helpless. Taylor stepped forward, hands raised peacefully. Commander Kolya, this is madness. The Atlantis expedition will not negotiate with terrorists. They'll negotiate when we possess technology that could shift Pegasus's power balance. Kolya kept his weapon trained on the Tenno. I'm being generous here. The Tenno cooperates, we get what we need, everyone survives. Or the Tenno plays hero, we're forced to demonstrate our seriousness, and innocent people die needlessly. The choice seems obvious. The Tenno stood motionless, calculating. 50 soldiers, all armed with weapons adequate for killing unarmored humans. Hostages clustered in the market center, including the children who had been playing minutes ago. EMP generators deployed at tactical intervals, crude but potentially effective against standard technology. But the Tenno didn't use standard technology. You've studied the Wraith, the Tenno said conversationally. You've analyzed their tactics, their technology, their psychology. That's how the genies survive. Through intelligence and adaptation. Impressive. Kolya smiled. Flattery won't change the situation. No, but it tells me you're smart enough to recognize when you've miscalculated. The Tenno's energy signature stabilized, drawing on void reserves. You've made 3 assumptions, Commander. First, that I'm bound by the same physics your EMP generators were designed to counter. Second, that I value my life enough to surrender. Third, that I'm the only threat in this plaza. What are you? The Tenno moved, not toward Kolya or his soldiers, but toward the hostages. The Excalibur frame covered 30 meters in under 2 seconds, placing itself between the civilians and the genii weapons. Radial blind activated, white light exploding outward, blinding every soldier in the plaza. Kolya screamed orders, soldiers firing blindly. The Tenno's energy spiked as they activated a technique they'd been saving. Sentient adaptation. The frame's biomechanical systems, designed by the Orokin to fight the sentient's adaptive technology, began analyzing the genii weapon's energy signatures and adjusting defenses in real time. Bullets that should have pierced armor skidded off hardened plating. Energy weapons that should have burned through biomechanical tissue scattered uselessly against adapted shielding. The Tenno had faced worse in the Origin system, had adapted to threats that made genii technology look like stone axes. Kolya activated the EMP generators. The devices screamed, pouring electromagnetic energy into the plaza at frequencies designed to overwhelm any technological system. Ancient devices flickered and died. Genie combat visors went dark. Even Taylor's Wraith life sign detector shut down. The Tenno kept moving, unaffected. Void energy didn't rely on electromagnetism. It existed in spaces between dimensions, fundamentally incompatible with physics-based countermeasures. Impossible, Kolya breathed. Possible, the Tenno corrected. Just beyond your understanding. The Tenno didn't kill the genie soldiers. That would have been easy. Radial Javelin could have eliminated every combatant in seconds. Instead, they moved through the blinded, disoriented soldiers with surgical precision, disabling weapons, dislocating joints, rendering threats unconscious with strikes that wouldn't permanently damage. Kolya watched his perfect plan disintegrate. His soldiers fell like wheat before a scythe, their superior numbers meaningless against an opponent who fought like physics was a suggestion. The EMP generators, the carefully positioned forces, the hostage leverage, all useless against technology that operated on principles his scientists hadn't imagined. "Fall back," Kolya ordered, but half his soldiers were already down. The Tenno moved through three-dimensional space with impossible grace, wall running across the plaza's buildings, bullet jumping between positions, making every soldier's tactical training irrelevant. Taylor, recovered from the flash, herded civilians toward the Stargate. "Dial Atlantis! Get these people out of here!" The Stargate activated, and villagers fled through the event horizon. The Tenno covered their retreat, Skana blade dancing between targets. Not killing, always not killing, because these soldiers were following orders and didn't deserve death for their commander's ambition. But Kolya deserved answers. The Tenno closed the distance, blade to the genie commander's throat. "You studied the Wraith. You learned their tactics. But you never learned the most important lesson. Predators who threaten children die first." Kolya froze, feeling Orokin steel against his skin. "You're making a mistake. The Genii have resources, allies, technology you haven't seen. Kill me, and you make an enemy of an entire civilization. I'm not going to kill you, Commander. I'm going to send you home with a message." The Tenno's blade moved, cutting Kolya's weapon harness free. "Tell your superiors this. The Tenno don't negotiate with terrorists. We don't submit to threats. And we certainly don't allow innocent people to be used as leverage. The next time you target civilians to get to me, I won't stop at disabling your soldiers." "You think this is over?" Kolya snarled, retreating toward the gate. "The Genii don't forgive. Don't forget. You've made yourself our enemy, Tenno, and we're very good at eliminating enemies. So am I." The Tenno watched the remaining genie soldiers flee through the gate. "The difference is, I've had centuries of practice." After the gate shut, Taylor approached, her expression a mixture of awe and concern. "You could have killed them all. Kolya expected you to. He prepared for violence, but you chose restraint. The Tenno have killed enough." The operator's voice carried weight of experience. "These soldiers were tools. Killing them would have solved nothing and created martyrs. Kolya needed to understand he misjudged me. Now he knows. He also knows you're vulnerable to coordinated assault, that you prioritize civilian safety over tactical advantage, and that your power, however impressive, has limits." Taylor studied the Tenno. "He will adapt. The Genii always adapt. Then so will I." The Tenno deactivated their combat systems, energy signature dropping to minimal levels. The operator felt the strain, holding back, fighting non-lethally, protecting civilians while disabling threats had drained reserves already stretched by dimensional instability. But next time he'll bring more soldiers, better technology, smarter tactics. Shepard's voice crackled through comms. "Tenno, Taylor, report. We just got word of a Genii incursion." "Situation handled, Colonel," Taylor replied, "though I suspect we've made enemies today. Enemies we can deal with, civilian casualties we can't." Shepard paused. "Good work, both of you. Get back to Atlantis for debrief." As they walked toward the gate, Taylor asked quietly, "The child you mentioned before Kolya arrived, the one inside the armor. How old were you when the Orokin changed you?" The Tenno was silent for long moments. "Young enough that I barely remember what I looked like. Old enough to remember what it felt like to be human." The distorted voice carried unexpected vulnerability. The Zariman 10-0 accident exposed 300 children to the void. Most died. Those who survived came back changed, able to project their consciousness, able to touch energy that shouldn't exist. The Orikins saw weapons. We saw survival. The difference destroyed an empire. And now you're here, far from home, fighting wars that aren't yours. Taylor's tone held sympathy. That must be lonely. The Tenno are always alone. Even when surrounded by allies, we're separate, different. We've accepted that. The Tenno stepped through the gate, reality shifting as the wormhole carried them back to Atlantis. But acceptance doesn't make it hurt less. In the Genii underground bunker, Kolya briefed his superiors on the failed operation. The council listened with varying degrees of anger and interest as he described the Tenno's capabilities, their resistance to conventional countermeasures, their apparent moral code that prevented lethal force against military targets. So we've confirmed they're powerful but unwilling to kill except under extreme provocation, Chief Scientist Prenum summarized. That's useful intelligence. It's more than that, Kolya insisted. The Tenno operates under Atlantis authority but maintains independence. They can be isolated, cut off from support, and their power, however impressive, has limits. They showed fatigue at the end of the engagement. That means the armor's energy reserves can be depleted. You're proposing we try again? Counselor Avel asked skeptically. I'm proposing we study what we learned and prepare for when the opportunity arises. The Tenno is stranded in Pegasus, dependent on Atlantis resources. That dependency creates vulnerability. Kolya pulled up intelligence reports. Meanwhile, we continue gathering information. The Wraith are also hunting the Tenno. Let them weaken each other. When both are vulnerable, the Genii will move decisively. The council murmured approval. Patience had served the Genii well in the past. It would serve them again. But none of them knew that 3 Wraith Hive ships had just entered the Lantea system, and Queen Moonwhite herself had come to claim the being that had killed so many of her children. The war for the Tenno was about to escalate beyond anyone's expectations. The Wraith Hive ships emerged from hyperspace like leviathans breaching dark water. 3 of them, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescence, weapons charged and ready. Queen Moonwhite stood on the command deck of the lead vessel, studying tactical displays with predatory focus. The city floats on the water, her tactical officer reported. Shield strength, significant. Ancient defense systems active, but we have detected the energy signature. The Tenno is inside. Moonwhite's feeding hand clenched reflexively. Vex had brought recordings of his encounters, the warrior who moved like water and struck like lightning, whose blade had killed her children without mercy, whose power resonated with frequencies Wraith sensors had never catalogued. Such a being would strengthen her hive immeasurably, or eliminate a threat before it grew beyond containment. Deploy dart squadrons, probe their defenses. I want to see how the Lanteans respond when facing 3 hives simultaneously. She moved to the viewport, watching Atlantis shimmer in the ocean below. And ready the culling beams. If the Tenno won't come to us, we'll motivate them with the screams of their allies. In Atlantis's control room, alarms screamed warnings that turned Elizabeth Weir's blood cold. 3 hive ships on long-range sensors, closing fast. The city's shields powered up automatically, ancient technology responding to the threat with ancient protocols. We can't fight 3 hives, McKay said, fingers flying across his console. The ZPM's at 63% capacity. That'll hold the shields for maybe 4 hours under sustained bombardment. Then we're defenseless. Options? Weir demanded. Running, hiding, or praying. McKay pulled up power distribution charts. We could activate the star drive, submerge the city, and relocate, but that takes time we don't have. Or we could dial Earth, evacuate essential personnel, and hope the hives get bored before destroying everything we've built here. Shepard entered the control room, the Tenno following. Or we could take the fight to them. With what? Weir gestured at the tactical display. We have one ship capable of space combat, maybe 24 drones in the chair weapons platform, against 3 hive ships? That's not a fight, Colonel. That's suicide. The Tenno moved to the displays, studying the Wraith formation with professional interest. 3 hives, estimated crew complement of 30,000 each. Dart complement of 1,200 per hive. Weapons systems adequate for orbital bombardment. The distorted voice carried no fear, only calculation. They're here for me, which means this is my fight. That's a lovely sentiment, McKay interjected. But unless your armor comes with ship-to-ship weapons, you're not exactly equipped for space combat. The Archwing allows limited void space maneuvering, sufficient for boarding actions. The Tenno turned to Weir. Give me a way onto one of those hive ships, and I'll disable it from the inside. Destroy the primary power distribution nodes, and the entire vessel goes dark. You can't be serious, Beckett said from his medical station. You're talking about infiltrating an organic spacecraft filled with thousands of Wraith warriors. Alone. I've boarded Corpus Capital ships with worse odds. The difference is practice, not possibility. The Tenno's energy signature spiked, drawing on reserves. But I need to move fast. The longer we wait, the more darts they deploy. And if they start culling the mainland settlements, they won't get the chance. Shepard was already moving toward the chair room. I'll take the jumper up, provide covering fire and insertion support. McKay, prep the chair weapons. We'll need every drone we can throw at them. This is insane, Weir said, but her tone suggested resignation rather than disagreement. If you fail, then evacuate the city and dial Earth. The Tenno moved toward the jumper bay. But if I succeed, your Wraith problem becomes manageable. 1 hive you can handle. 3 requires someone capable of changing the mathematics. Taylor intercepted them in the corridor. I'm coming with you. Negative, Shepard said. This is a military operation. The Wraith have culled my people for generations. If there's a chance to strike back, to show them we're not helpless prey, I will take it. Her eyes found the Tenno. And you'll need someone who understands Wraith ship layouts, their tactical thinking. I've studied them all my life. The Tenno considered, then nodded. Accepted. But you follow my lead. Board actions are chaotic, lethal, and require split-second decisions. No hesitation. The Athosians do not hesitate when our survival is at stake. The puddle jumper broke atmosphere, cloaked, climbing toward the hive ship armada. Shepard piloted with practiced ease, weaving between dart patrols that swept the space around Atlantis like metallic fish schooling. The lead hive ship dominated the viewport, kilometers of organic architecture, biomechanical weapons tracking across the hull like tumors. That's the biggest hive I've ever seen, Shepard muttered. McKay, you seeing this? Unfortunately, yes. That ship's throwing power signatures that suggest a queen's on board. McKay's voice crackled through comms. Which means it's probably the most heavily defended, tactically vital target you could have chosen. Wonderful. The Tenno stood at the rear hatch, Archwing deployed, checking equipment. The Skana blade hung at their hip, energy reserves cycling through combat configurations. Beside them, Taylor wore a borrowed P90 and determination. Insertion point, Shepard announced, bringing the jumper alongside a sphincter-like port on the hive ship's flank. That's their dart bay. You go in there. You'll have 30 seconds before every Wraith on the ship knows you're aboard. 30 seconds is enough. The Tenno looked at Taylor. Stay close. Move when I move. If I tell you to run, you run. Clear? Clear. The hatch opened. Void screamed into vacuum. The Tenno and Tayla launched into space, archwing propulsion carrying them toward the hive ship's organic hull. Behind them, Shepard engaged 6 darts that had detected the jumper's position, drones screaming from weapons pods. The Tenno landed on the hull, biomechanical armor interfacing with Wraith biotechnology in ways neither civilization's designers had intended. The sphincter port opened. Organisms didn't have airlocks, just membranes that sealed against vacuum. They pushed through into atmosphere thick with organic musk and the copper tang of blood. 30 darts hung in the bay, pilots preparing for deployment. The nearest Wraith warrior turned, feeding hand rising in surprise, mouth opening to scream alert. The Tenno moved first. Radial javelin activated, blades of light erupting in all directions. Darts exploded, pilots died screaming, and the bay descended into chaos. Alarms shrieked through the ship's organic nervous system, alerting thousands of warriors that boarders had penetrated their hive. "So much for stealth," Tayla said, firing controlled bursts at warriors flooding the bay. "Stealth is for scouts. I'm here to send a message." The Tenno drew the Skana blade, void energy crystallizing along its edge. "The message is, you came to the wrong galaxy." They fought through corridors that pulsed like intestines, walls that bled when struck, floors that tried to seal around their feet. Wraith warriors came in waves, feeding hands extended, stunners firing, organic blades seeking vulnerable points. The Tenno cut through them like they were shadows, each strike precise, efficient, deadly. Tayla stayed close, covering angles the Tenno couldn't watch, calling out tactical information. "Left corridor, 4 warriors. Above us, ventilation shaft. Behind..." The Tenno spun, blade intercepting a warrior who had dropped from the ceiling. "You've done this before." "The Athosians have resisted the Wraith for generations. We've learned to fight even when fighting seems hopeless." She fired again, dropping a warrior who had gotten too close. "Where are we going?" "Power distribution nexus. Every hive ship needs centralized systems to coordinate biomechanical functions. We destroy that. The ship goes dark." The Tenno consulted their HUD, mapping pathways through the organic structure. 3 levels down, central axis, through approximately 400 more warriors. 400. Of course, Tayla reloaded. "I'm beginning to understand why the Orokin feared you." They descended through the hive ship's levels, leaving carnage in their wake. The Tenno's energy reserves depleted with each engagement, the void connection straining under dimensional instability and combat stress. But they pushed forward because hesitation meant death, and death meant Atlantis fell. The power nexus chamber stretched 30 meters across, a cathedral of organic technology. Massive conduits pulsed with energy, feeding power to weapons, life support, engines. And standing before the central node, feeding hand extended in challenge, Queen Moonwhite waited. "So you are the Tenno," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the chamber resonate. "The warrior who has killed so many of my children. I had expected something more. Impressive." The Tenno faced the Queen, reading her power signature. Stronger than any Wraith they'd encountered, faster, more intelligent. Thousands of years old, commanding 3 hive ships, apex predator who had culled countless worlds. "I've killed empires, Queen. Your hive is just another obstacle." The Skana blade hummed with building energy. "Stand aside or I'll add you to the body count." Moonwhite laughed, the sound like tearing metal. "Such arrogance, such delicious arrogance. I'm going to enjoy breaking you." She moved, faster than the lesser Wraith, feeding hand striking like a viper. The Tenno met her charge. Blade meeting palm, biomechanical armor straining against organic strength that had torn through ancient alloys. The battle for the Hive ship had reached its climax. The fight between Tenno and Wraith Queen shook the chamber. Moonwhite moved with centuries of combat experience, feeding hand and blade working in concert, testing defenses that had survived the old war. The Tenno countered with techniques refined across 15 years and countless battlefields, each strike adapted to Wraith physiology, each movement calculated for maximum efficiency. "You're strong," Moonwhite admitted, parrying a strike that would have decapitated a lesser warrior. "But strength alone won't save you. I've fed on thousands of humans, absorbed their knowledge, their skill, their life essence. Each death made me faster, smarter, more powerful. What are you but a child in stolen armor?" The Tenno's response came through action. Radial blind activated, white light exploding outward. Moonwhite screamed, blinded, her feeding hand lashing out reflexively. The Tenno ducked under the strike and drove their blade into the Queen's side, void energy searing through Wraith regeneration. "I'm the child who ended the Orokin Empire," the Tenno said quietly. "What's one more queen?" But Moonwhite wasn't finished. Her regeneration fought the void energy, tissue knitting despite the dimensional damage. She grabbed the Tenno's blade with her feeding hand, accepting the injury to immobilize her opponent. Her other blade swept toward the Tenno's neck. Taylor fired, P90 rounds stitching across Moonwhite's shoulder. The Queen staggered, grip loosening. The Tenno pulled free and activated Exalted Blade, extending their weapon with pure void energy. "Taylor, the conduits, plant charges." Taylor ran toward the power distribution nodes, placing explosive charges with shaking hands. Warriors flooded the chamber, responding to their queen's distress. The Tenno moved to intercept, buying time, body count rising. Moonwhite recovered, fury overriding pain. "You dare!" She lunged, both blades seeking vital points. The Tenno met her charge head-on. Exalted Blade carved through Wraith steel like paper, scoring deep wounds across the Queen's torso. But Moonwhite's feeding hand found purchase on the Excalibur frame's shoulder, biomechanical armor screaming as the Queen's life-draining abilities interfaced with Orokin technology in ways neither biology had encountered. Energy drained from the frame, not life force. The Warframe was biomechanical construct, not truly alive, but power, operational capacity. The systems that let the operator maintain transference across dimensional barriers. The connection wavered. The operator, consciousness stretched between armor and distant body, felt themselves slipping. Moonwhite's feeding ability, evolved over millennia to drain human life essence, found unexpected purchase in the quantum entanglement that made transference possible. "There," Moonwhite breathed, feeling the Tenno's power falter. "There's the weakness. You're not invincible. You're just a frightened child hiding in sophisticated armor." And now, the operator made a choice. They severed the transference connection themselves, cutting off Moonwhite's drain. The Excalibur frame went autonomous, operating on combat protocols embedded in its biomechanical nervous system. Less creative, less adaptive, but still deadly. The frame fought on instinct, blade dancing between targets. Moonwhite, surprised by the tactical shift, pressed her advantage. The frame couldn't match her experience, couldn't predict her movements like the operator could. She wounded it, biomechanical tissue bleeding, systems failing. But autonomous operation meant one thing. The Warframe no longer held back. Combat protocols prioritized mission completion over operator safety. The frame grabbed Moonwhite's feeding hand with its own biomechanical strength matching organic power. The Exalted Blade, still active, drove upward through the Queen's chest. Void energy poured into the wound, not just cutting but unmaking. Moonwhite screamed as dimensional energy tore through her biology, preventing regeneration, burning through life essence accumulated over millennia. Impossible, she gasped, feeling death for the first time in 10,000 years. What? What are you? The frame didn't answer. It simply drove the blade deeper. Taylor's voice cut through the chaos. Charges set. We need to leave. Now! The frame released Moonwhite, letting the Queen collapse. It moved toward Taylor with mechanical precision, grabbing her, activating Archwing propulsion. They launched from the chamber as the charges detonated, power conduits exploding in cascading failure. The hive ship shuddered. Lights died. Gravity fluctuated. Thousands of Wraith warriors found themselves trapped in dying vessel, life support failing, weapons offline. The frame and Taylor blasted through corridors filling with venting atmosphere, reached the dart bay, stole a dart, and launched into space. Behind them, the hive ship began breaking apart, organic structures failing without power. The other two hive ships, seeing their queen's vessel dying, broke formation. One attempted rescue operations, the other fired on Atlantis, desperation overriding tactics. Shepard in the jumper provided covering fire as the stolen dart raced toward the city. Tenno, what's your status? No response. The frame piloted mechanically, autonomous systems guiding them home. Taylor grabbed the comm. The Tenno is injured. The operator, there's something wrong with the connection. We need immediate medical support. Atlantis's shields flared under hive ship weapons fire, but McKay had used the distraction to deploy every drone in the ancient weapons platform. Hundreds of ancient drones swarmed the attacking hive, punching through organic armor, destroying weapon systems. The second hive ship took critical damage and retreated into hyperspace. The third, focused on rescue, followed moments later. The dying Queen's vessel remained, breaking apart in Lantea's orbit, thousands of Wraith screaming into vacuum. The stolen dart landed in Atlantis's jumper bay. Medical teams rushed forward as the hatch opened. The Excalibur frame collapsed, systems failing, biomechanical tissues damaged beyond autonomous repair protocols. Beckett scanned the frame desperately. I'm reading minimal life signs, barely registering. The operator inside is alive, but the connection is severed. I don't know how to reconnect them without understanding the technology. The frame's hand moved shakily, reaching toward its chest. A compartment opened, revealing crystalline technology the Orokin had called transference bolts, emergency reconnection systems for when primary links failed. Someone help me with this, Beckett commanded. We need to... The bolt activated. Golden light poured from the frame as the operator re-established transference, consciousness flooding back into the armor. The frame convulsed, systems rebooting, damage protocols engaging. The Tenno's voice distorted but present. Status of the hive? Destroyed, Shepard said, relief evident. You killed a queen, disabled her ship, and sent 2 more hives running. I'd say that's a successful mission. The queen is dead? Taylor asked quietly. Truly dead. Void energy prevents Wraith regeneration. She won't feed again. The Tenno tried to stand, failed, systems still rebooting. But the other hives will return. With more ships, more warriors, the Wraith don't forgive. Neither do we, Weir said from the doorway. You saved Atlantis today, saved thousands of lives on the mainland settlements. Whatever happens next, we face it together. The Tenno's frame stabilized, self-repair protocols engaging. Together. I'm not accustomed to that concept. The Tenno operate independently. Well, you're not in the Origin system anymore. Shepard offered a hand, helping the frame stand. Welcome to the Pegasus Galaxy, where apparently interdimensional warriors fight Wraith Queens in hand-to-hand combat. Just another Tuesday in Atlantis. Despite everything, The pain, the exhaustion, the dimensional instability still affecting their power. The Tenno's distorted laugh sounded almost human. 3 weeks after the battle, Dr. Zelenka made a breakthrough. The spatial rift under Atlantis had stabilized, and analysis revealed something unexpected. The anomaly wasn't random. It was a scar left by the intersection of two incompatible dimensional technologies, Stargate wormholes and void travel. And scars could be reopened. We could theoretically recreate the conditions, Zelenka explained to the Tenno in the lab. Generate a temporary bridge back to your galaxy. But the power requirements, we'd need to drain our ZPM to critical levels, and the window would be maybe 30 seconds. The Tenno studied the data, understanding the implications. 30 seconds to return home, to reconnect with their orbiter, to resume the mission they'd spent 15 years pursuing, or stay in Pegasus, stranded but needed, fighting wars that weren't theirs alongside allies who had become something more than temporary partners. How long until you could generate the bridge? The Tenno asked. 3 months, maybe 4. Assuming we can divert enough resources and the Wraith don't attack again. The Tenno nodded slowly. Then we have time to decide. Later, standing on Atlantis's East Pier watching the sunset, Shepard found them. Heard Zelenka might have found you a way home. Possibly, though home has become complicated. The Tenno turned slightly. The Origin system continues its wars with or without me. But here I've made difference. Saved people who would have died. Fought beside warriors who value more than just mission completion. Sounds like you're thinking of staying. I'm thinking that the Tenno exist to maintain balance. And Pegasus is very unbalanced. The distorted voice carried something that might have been hope. The Wraith will return. The Genii will plot. Other threats will emerge from the darkness between stars. You'll need someone who can face those threats without hesitation. We'd be lucky to have you, though McKay will never admit it. Shepard paused. But if you do decide to go home, we'll understand. You've got your own galaxy to protect. The Tenno watched the sun sink toward the endless ocean, painting the sky in golds and crimsons that reminded them of the void's light. Somewhere across dimensional barriers, the Origin system continued its endless conflicts. But here, in this strange galaxy with its impossible technology and desperate people, the Tenno had found something they hadn't known they needed. Purpose beyond contracts. Allies beyond necessity. A place where one warrior's strength could change the mathematics of survival. When the time came to choose between home and mission, between the familiar and the necessary, the Tenno would make the decision that defined them. Protect the balance, whatever the cost. For now, Atlantis stood strong. Pegasus's people lived another day, and somewhere in deep space, Wraith hives whispered warnings about the warrior in gold and white armor whose blade could end immortals. The Tenno's war in Pegasus had only begun, and across the galaxy, threats both familiar and unknown watched with interest as a new player entered the ancient game of survival. The dimensional rift remained, a doorway waiting to be opened. The Genii plotted in their underground bunkers. The Wraith regrouped, hungrier than ever. And somewhere in the Pegasus darkness, ancient dangers stirred that would test even Tenno resolve. But today, watching the alien sunset over an impossible city, the operator inside the Excalibur frame allowed themselves something rare: hope. Not for victory. The Tenno had learned victory was temporary, but for meaning, for connection, for the chance to stand beside others who fought against the darkness, not because they had to, but because no one else could. The galaxy far, far away had gained a guardian who had crossed dimensions to be here, and nothing, not Wraith, not Genie, not even the pull of home, would make them abandon this fight until balance was restored. May the Force be with you. More stories await.